and leadership facilitation, where I focus mostly on communication skills and team building. I will debate you till the cows come home on the difference between work groups and teams, but that's for another discussion. Spent 2 years in HR, recruiting and onboarding, actually supervising a quality assurance team for that. And then 6 years as a business partner. I worked closely with H&R Block, and I worked closely with life insurance agencies that sold the products. And for the last 9 years, I've been managing operations for life insurance, which is very different than corporate training and facilitation, except that now I try to apply the things that I used to talk about. For the last year, like Joby said, I've now been a year in network marketing, joining her in a new venture, and that has been a gift to me. And again, maybe something I wouldn't have done if it wasn't for COVID, but it's been a gift for me to get back to some passion. So I don't know how I became an ops manager, but I love talking to people. I love guiding others towards improvements. And I try to do that in operations by doing process improvements, but I really like to help people improve. And I've thoroughly been enjoying my own journey and reflection that the pandemic has allowed us. So with that, let's open this up for discussion, because it's not all about me. This is not a lecture. This is a discussion. And I want to hear from everybody else, maybe what's changed in your life. And, we use the traffic lights: stop, slow down, or go. And you see on the left, I've listed some kind of categories to help you think. And I'll just sort of give you like a couple of examples here. Like for me, I stopped washing my hair every day. I don't know, is that a good thing or not? But hey, slowing down and delaying things, probably a bit more impactful. But, I can remember at Christmas party in 2019, I talked to my friends like, okay, I'm going to really start dating. I'm going to get back out there. I'm going to update my dating profiles online. And then bam, pandemic. What a great excuse to scrap that plan. So slow, put on the brakes. Haven't done that for the last 2 years. And, kind of getting back into starting that now. But I definitely put a pause on that for the pandemic. And then starting, and I'm so glad my friend Tracy joined us tonight. In the summer of 2020, I bought an inflatable paddleboard. She bought an inflatable kayak, as did a couple other friends. And we discovered like this whole new hobby that let us go outside, stay sometimes way more than 6 feet apart, depending on the wind. But, have conversations with friends, have interpersonal contact in a safe environment where we weren't worried about recycled air and all the things that could come with that. Also budget-friendly hobby, I might add. So what about you guys? What have you changed? Routine, habit, hobby? Jump in. Don't forget to unmute yourself, though.
I ended up moving. Would that count as personal?
Yeah, something about the pandemic.
I had to end up selling my condo and moving back to close to my hometown with my family, living in a basement apartment. Completely different, with mother living next door and my sister and brother-in-law living upstairs. So it's gone from a downtown Toronto experience where you can be totally autonomous to everybody in your business. Fine.
Yeah, that's a dramatic change. What are some of the, are there like, there's gotta be some pros, right? Like what are the pros that have come out of that?
Totally. The great time that I am spending with my family, the expenses are significantly less. The stress is gone. I have no debt. So a lot of that stress is gone. A lot of those worries are gone. And I was fortunate that I had the condo, that I was able to sell it, that it enabled me to pay off my debt and then land safely. I know there's a lot of people that didn't happen with, so I feel very.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Anybody else have something similar? Anyone else have to move during the pandemic?
Ashley.
I'll go, Dr. Aaron.
Yeah.
So the first week of the pandemic, when I thought it was a little vacation, I was like, I'm going to paint the whole entire house. And I literally painted the whole entire house. And thank God I did, because I don't know if I would have done that had I known that I would have had, 2 years to do it. And then as we're inside of our house all the time, we basically redesigned our whole entire house over the last year. So that was amazing. And then our family is really into fitness and going to the gym, and our daughter's a personal trainer and she's 19. And so we couldn't do any of that. And we started going on family walks, and we became addicted to these family walks. And now I walk almost every day with Grace. She comes on over and we go for a walk, and we solve the world's problems. We laugh, and it's just become this just beautiful thing that we do. So we found that we loved to walk.
That's great. And I love like that you're spending more time with your daughter, right? So I think a lot of people, we talk about values changing, or maybe not your value changing, but maybe living your life more in tune with your value. So you spent time with your daughter. Kevin is living with all of his family surrounding him. I know I have a friend who started family Zooms, and they talk to each other more now than they used to talk to each other pre-pandemic. They have a set appointment, and this is when they talk, and they're going to talk. And whether it's walking or meeting online, a lot of people have had that. I also love that you talked about that beginning of the pandemic. It like blows my mind that it was almost 2 years ago, but there was this sense of play around it, I think, in the beginning, like you said, where we're like, oh, I'm gonna be home for like 2 to 4 weeks. Maybe I'll make some bread. So does anybody have like something that they did in the beginning that they're still doing?
I do.
Yeah, Tracy.
So as Kristen knows, I'm a performer, I'm a singer. So obviously, especially in the beginning, everything stopped for us.
Mm-hmm.
All shows were canceled, all practices, bands, whatever you had going on, it was done. And so a bunch of people that I didn't really know, some of whom I know like by acquaintance, we started doing Zoom karaoke on Thursday nights. We were like, well, we gotta sing, right? And we figured out that if you use a Bluetooth speaker as your sound source, Zoom doesn't distort it. Everyone can hear you. So we started doing Zoom karaoke on Thursday nights, and we still do it. And there's still a new theme every Thursday. Occasionally, as we got vaccinated, as things got safer, we would go to each other's houses. And, sometimes we would have like 2 or 3 people at one house. We've talked about doing a live one, but I was actually supposed to have a party on Saturday that I canceled because everything's crazy again. But the little thing that we did actually ended up bringing together a whole group of friends, most of us who never knew each other before. And now we have this whole new friend group that we've been to in-person parties with. And
That's awesome.
yeah, it's been pretty amazing from the very beginning of the pandemic.
Well, that's great, right? Like for me, it was reconnecting with Joby, who I've not seen in real life yet since 15 to 20 years ago. But I think you're going to have to give a tutorial later on how to use the Bluetooth speaker. I think most of us could put some level of learning Zoom as a new skill we learned. But, I think this is the first time I'm like trying to share and using 2 screens. Bluetooth tip, definitely spot on. And another theme of new friends, right? So meeting online and then meeting in real life.
Kristen?
Yeah, Ken.
Yeah, so many things have changed. One of the things that has been most significant in times in my life was something we could never have imagined. And it is how COVID has changed our relationships with our animals. We live on a farm, and we have 2 dogs of our own. And then there's also Barb has Grace, and now Joe and Cheryl are back with Bader. But we also have goats, and we have chickens, and we have guineas, and we have a horse and a donkey. And one of the things we could never have anticipated was that before COVID, when we were gone a lot of the time, we had one kind of relationship with our animals. And then when we were home all the time and they began to bond with us in a totally different way, we found ourselves so bonded to our animals and just, just dependent upon them and them so dependent upon us that that COVID has totally changed the way we relate to all the animals are very important to us here at Sanctuary. And we had one kind of relationship with them before COVID, and now we have a totally different kind of relationship just because of our being with them all the time. I wonder if anybody else has experienced that with their pets.
I've said to the dog a number of times, I don't know what I would do without the dog. And
You talk to your dog.
and I talk to I'm talking to clients, but sometimes, well, one of the things I was going to say was one of my habits or one of my, I don't know what it is, but my introverted side, I reconnected with her in a big way because I had to do 2 different quarantines related to being with my parents. And so I wasn't hustling. I wasn't, I was quiet. I was reading. My dog was in my lap. I would read to the dog would read to me, so to speak. And I was writing scripts, and then I launched the podcast. There were so many things, but it was all very, for me, quiet. The book Quiet, it was almost my kind of illumination of that self, of my introverted self that I really kind of lost touch with because I was always out there, always hustling, always busy, always. And so it was such a welcome change, actually.
Yeah, it sounds like in slowing down, you got more done. Writing scripts, you said, and starting a podcast. Would you have done that if you were still in hustle mode?
No, because I took a course for 23 days. I would never have straight 3 hours a day for 23 days. I would have never had time to do that. And couldn't access my parents at the beginning of that quarantine. And I impulsively bought a new condo and then started preparing my condo for sale. And I just didn't have time to do any of that. So,
and yet you kept talking to your clients as well, right? So you kept your main business going through this.
Oh, I moved it all to Zoom, which I also would have never. I'm not a computer savvy focused person. So, and now I don't think I'll ever see, well, I shouldn't say that, but I would hesitate now to see clients in person now because I live in a resort town. I want it to be my oasis. So if I'm not doing it online, I won't do it at all, but it's just really peaceful to be in connection with that quieter, more pensive, reflective writer, Jane Ann.
Yeah, no, that's great. I think, and I see in the chat, a lot of people commenting. There were a lot of people who took the time to be reflective, and I love that in slowing down, you actually got more done. That's great. And I think Yvette, you were trying to talk a while ago, and then Anna, I see you have your hand up as well. So Yvette, how about you? I know you had big changes like right when I met you.
I had huge changes. I literally went from the West Coast to the East Coast. And out of it came the blessing of being with my triplet grandchildren. And I can go through all that. It changed dramatically. It just stopped my life from what was going, to a completely halt. It was like, as far as getting up and getting ready for work and getting dressed, I would get to that point 2 weeks straight. That's what I got up and I did. Put on my purple scrubs, and it was like, where are you going? Because everything had been just, the doors shut, and it was nothing that I could do. I wish I could have been like Jane Ann and have something online, converted online, but I was not able to. And but the blessing, after going through everything that I did, the blessing was coming back home after 23 years and being with my 4-year-old triplets, finding the community that I have with my networking group with APL Go. They have helped me to, at 65, grow up a little bit more in some areas that I had not even, when you're with clients, you focus on them. And with this, I was able to join in with everyone and be in a place where I don't know how I got into the leadership group, because I just feel like, but somebody saw something in me to invite me, and I have been learning and ever since. And I so appreciate everything where I am right now. I wouldn't trade it back,
right?
Because I have grown personally, right? I've had this personal development. I've got a taste of it. I did my first presentation with this group, and it was like, wow, I can do it. I can speak. And then this coming weekend, we're going to do like something on the East Coast, and I'm part of that little team.
Are you going to be there Saturday, Yvette? I'm going to be there.
Yeah! Oh, okay. Yes. And so I get to talk about sampling and, and how I'm sharing the product. And it's like, wow, otherwise I wouldn't have been able. So I've really can appreciate my growing up as far as getting into the leadership role, and growing up as far as personal development, spiritually getting back into, I was in tune with myself, but it's something when you can have a little bit more time and really delve in to the core of who you really are.
Yeah.
And that has just made a huge difference for me.
These themes just keep echoing, right? Like the loss or a change. So for you, your whole business upended, but for Jane Ann, not being able to see her patients, and again, I don't want to go too far into career, but like for Dr. Erin, not being able to go to the gym and replacing that. And so many people just listening, how many people replace that with time for self-reflection, time with family, time for training or development you put off, like it just over and over again. Thank you so much for sharing, Yvette.
Absolutely.
Anna, you got your hand up. Hey, Anna.
Well, hi. Sorry, I missed the first half. I was on another Zoom and I was just trying to get off of it, but it was just one of those things.
Zoom.
I know. And actually, it's kind of crazy. I didn't hear the full question, but from people's responses, for me, it actually brought me closer to people because I had moved to the Dominican Republic in 2018. And I was seeing groups of people come in for trips, but I wasn't getting to really communicate with people. I wasn't in meetings. People just didn't adjust to doing things by Zoom, even though I was in another country. That just wasn't even something people thought about. And, it led me to the business as well with APL Go and my own health journey and my own personal development. And then just getting to talk to people again. I don't speak Spanish and I'm in a Spanish speaking country. So it was getting very lonely, and it's kind of weird, but I'm like, I don't want it to go back. Everybody please keep meeting on Zoom because
right.
I can see my people now, and you can like literally connect to people all around the world. So there's a lot of positives that have come from
it's crazy. I don't know if anyone's ever read about like the founder of Zoom, but I encourage you to go read that on the side. He seems like such a nice, authentic guy. Like he worked for WebEx and he left because he didn't like their pricing model, more or less. And when this all happened, then Zoom, took off. I talk about a change that he had in his life and the people who worked for him. But again, right, connecting with people, just building up. So we got a lot of good things coming out of this. Let me pull up my next slide because it's going to we're going to continue this conversation, but take it from a slightly different perspective. Oh boy, can I do this? I think I can. Oops. Okay, so I think we can see that. We got a couple things aside. So I came across an interesting article this last weekend when I was preparing to lead this conversation tonight. And it talked about, well, as things go back to normal, whatever the heck that might be. And a few of you have said, I don't want it to change, whether you've bonded with your pets or your mom or your grandchildren or just yourself. But, there's some things to consider. And so one of the examples is, let's say that you did start waking up and journaling, and you wake up and you journal and you do some yoga because you got rid of your 30 or 45 minute or hour plus, if you're where I live, commute. right? So you're not commuting, you're working from home, you wake up and you journal and you meditate, and it's awesome. And now you got to go back to work at least a few days a week. What do you do? Do you stop journaling? Do you stop meditating? Do you journal at lunchtime? Do you wake up earlier? Do you do it at night? And that's just one example. But I mean, what do you guys think? What are, what things do you want to carry forward? And the flip side of that is, what do you want to drop? Like, I know I am in 2022 trying to get back to eating 3 meals and not snacking because the fridge is way too close to my desk. Right? That's a bad habit from being home. So yeah, so carry forward or drop. Dr. Erin.
Oh, okay. So one thing, if you know me, you know that my husband Garth is just the best thing that's ever happened to me. And he came home during the pandemic and it was like, oh my gosh, this is so great. And then he went back to work. And so we really want him to get back home because we really liked that. And so, experiencing that and seeing, are we really going to like that? We really are going to like that. So that was interesting. And then something that I picked up during the last 2 years that I never really did was watch the news and be on social media a lot, because before the pandemic, I was out and about speaking and being with humans. And I don't like doing either of those as much as I'm doing. So I need to drop both of those habits and create kind of containers for each of them moving forward, and put some boundaries up for myself of like, nope, you can watch this for the news and this much time on social media, but it really becomes addicting.
Did you know you can set daily time limits for individual apps on if you have an iPhone? I don't know, but it's something I did this year because I'm with you, Dr. Erin, working from home. My day job management team communicates via phone, and network marketing communicates via social media, and that's all good. But once that phone is in my hand, it's like a drug. I am like so badly addicted to it. But yeah, that's something I've done for 2022 right. So adjustments I'm making is like, I still want to be able to do certain things, but I've gone in, I've just learned this. So I'm going to share this tip with all of you. You can not only set daily time limits, but you can set downtime. So I picked a couple hours during the day, and my phone will now not work from 9 to 10 a.m.
Well, that's just cray. You've taken it too far, Kristen. Too far. No.
Just a thought. How about anybody else? What are you gonna definitely carry forward in your new normal? Ken, what did you have?
Kristen, yeah, one of the things that we've been talking about a lot here at Sanctuary is the fact that all of our Zoom relationships and communities, that we have built, whether it's those who have learned to worship on Zoom or to learn on Zoom or just communicate on Zoom, all of that's beginning to change now because people have so many more options that we don't just have to do this on Zoom. And so one of the things that we have been talking about here is how important this has become to us to be in relationship with all of you, and so as we all, and it's almost inevitable, that we're all going to go our separate ways and, to some extent again, but hearing your voices and your input and your experiences and your intelligence and the things that you share and bring into our lives on these Tuesday nights, that's one of the things that we want to figure out somehow, to hold on to as we move into the future. It may not look exactly like this,
right?
But in some way, the communities that we have built and the relationships we have built, on Zoom during these really stressful times, as the times become less stressful, to figure out a way that we do not lose these relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And it's so, as well, again, things are, at least where I live, crazy again. but as it seems to be lifting, I really wanted to focus this year on reconnecting with people in the real world. But you make a really good point. I don't want to lose these online connections I've made of people who are so far away that I wouldn't be talking to them on a regular basis, and isn't it funny, you can find a meme anywhere about like, Gen Z and even millennials who don't use the phone, but give them a video chat, they're all over it, right? So it's, times do change, and this is certainly one of those events, right? A worldwide event that has accelerated technology in some ways, but again, not technology, right? Spending more time with your pets. And I won't go into work, but I know like my corporate job, they used to let you bring your dogs in on Fridays. And now they can bring their dogs in on any day because everyone's dog is used to them being there, right? So you got to make a change around some of those things, but you adjust it, right? Yeah, Joby. And by the way, Joby and Cheryl, I do want to drop 30 pounds too, but
I just want to jump on what Ken said, because it's funny, Ken. I look at the circle and I see Denise and Edie, maybe, that know Kelly was here once. Sanctuary, Denise was one of the coordinators of our very first massive Sanctuary event and Oktoberfest. Yes. Thank you over and over, Denise, again for doing that. And we had,
I'm still ready for
loads
the next one.
We still want, if we ever do it, it's all yours, honey.
We had the boots. I got everything.
We had a musician. We had a tour of the Sanctuary property. We unveiled the stone. But we're used to at Sanctuary having large gatherings of in person, right? Mm-hmm. And Ken, many folks on this call have no idea that you and Tom, Easter and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, just this past New Year's, you tried to recover. One of our favorite, experiences is just having people come out to this sacred, special property and be together. And that, it's just broken my heart. I mean, a lot of what we talk about tonight has been so positive, but we have lost that. That was one of the ways that Sanctuary was Sanctuary. One of the ways that we brought folks out here in mass and fed them, and just to hear their conversations, and to someone's out playing with the goats, someone else is feeding the carrot to the donkey, someone else is checking the chickens, then there's people out by the pool chatting. It's this time is changing what we are doing with this property. And we're even, still meeting even yesterday about how do we build something that still gathers folks and is a place for folks to gather, but serves a post-COVID world, and so it's, anyway, I just thought, Ken, It is amazing friends we've met. And yet I know there's a loss in our hearts too of being physically present here on the property and welcoming folks to Sanctuary.
Sure. And it is, that's right. I think it's so important to recognize those losses, as we talk about like start doing and stop doing, but there's things that we stopped doing that we didn't want to stop doing. So, Tracy talked about figuring out how to do karaoke on Zoom, but I've seen her perform live, and trust me, it's worth it. Like, and where we are right outside New York City, to see Broadway shows come back up and then go dark again. And all of that, and even vacation companies. There's a group I've traveled with a few years. Some of you, your Facebook friends, you've seen. I go tall ship sailing in the Caribbean. It's amazing, but it's like a 24 passenger ship. And just got an email the other day in the fan page. They had to cancel 2 weeks of sales because a guest and a crew member both tested positive, and so now they have to shut down their entire business. But they've got, 40, 50 people who had flights and travel plans and whatnot that all got disrupted. And certainly none of that is positive. So, there are some things that we want to drop, right? So let's stop doing it. And I joke about going to the fridge and dropping 30 pounds. But right. And I said in my introduction, I postponed getting back into the dating world. I don't know if that was a good decision for me. It was fine at the time. We'll see what happens. Check in with me.
Being really hard on singles, actually.
Yes.
This COVID, and I don't know. I don't know if any one group is more susceptible than the other. I read something about gay men having a really, really hard time simply because of the hookup culture and the inability to continue that, and not doing it out of stopping it out of desire, but out of necessity and having it sudden. It's been really hard. And then how do you move on? And like I've gone on some of the apps and I'm like, yeah, you'd be cute to meet. And I'm like, do I want COVID? Which
Yeah, right.
Forget it, right? Just so then it's just forget it. So you don't even think about it. So you put it in the back of your head. And one day, hopefully, we'll be able to like maybe meet people again, and hopefully we won't be so friggin' socially awkward. I can't even imagine what that first date's going to be like. Well, I can because I did go on. Well, I didn't go on one, but
I mean, first dates are universally horrible.
It was actually pretty.
No, but
and they are.
true.
I met him at the beginning of COVID when we met online, and we've been talking online for 2 years. We finally got to meet in that very short window of where I could go across the border.
An American, Kevin? An American?
American, I know.
Yeah, no, that's so true.
Kristen,
For dating or friendships, right? Like you don't want to screen everybody with like, do you wear a mask? Are you vaccinated? Who have you seen? Where'd you go? What like that seems kind of like a third degree for getting together with people. And yet, I had friends for Christmas who were like, yeah, you can come over for Christmas if you take 2 COVID tests in the 3 days before. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'll go buy one.
Kevin, you just really
who's trying to talk? I'm sorry. Oh,
Ken,
go ahead.
Who's that?
Ken.
Kevin, I published a book on relationships early in 2020, and in my research, one of the things that just struck me so powerfully was the fact that when society is totally open, people meet each other in all kinds of social, religious, familial gatherings, and relationships are formed during that time. And what I was reading about is the fact that we went for 18 to 24 months without those kinds of opportunities for people to meet and form relationships is going to affect our society 20 years from now. 20 years from now, we're going to feel, the lack of those relationships that formed during that time, the contributions that they make to our culture and society because they are relationships, whether they are, sometimes it is because of the children, that are produced from those relationships. Sometimes it's from the social and artistic kinds of enterprises that arise from those relationships. But what is society going to be like 20 years from now? Because we went for 2 years without people being able to form these primary committed relationships.
That's interesting. That's really interesting, Ken. I joke about not updating my online dating, but anyone who knows me will say I've been adamant for years that I'm going to meet some random person whose brother's cousin's son's daughter's niece's coworker is going to be the person I end up with. And I didn't meet real people.
Right.
As a lot of others didn't. And yet while families were maybe spending more time together, people who were single were really, really left alone. I'm very lucky to be part of a neighborhood where I know people. And so I go out walking and talk to people in the streets. But I remember saying to friends, at one point, I went 6 weeks without touching another human. like a handshake or a hug, you know. And so, you know, and luckily we're past that now, thankfully. But, you know, having this conversation a long time ago, and like I said, my friends and I got very, very outdoorsy, but we'd meet in parking lots and then go do our activity. We didn't hug each other, and we're all huggers. We're like huggers and kissers and squeezers. And, you know, all of that got put on the back burner for a long time. So yeah, I am very happy to leave that, the no touching of people behind. Like I wanna hug y'all.
I think Glenda's got her hand up over there.
Oh, didn't see it. Yep. Where, who? Yep.
Hi, everybody. I just want to pick
Hey.
up on a comment that Ken made. I have a 14-year-old granddaughter who has been bouncing back and forth from virtual learning to in-class learning. And I have the same fears for her over the next 10 years relative to social capabilities. And, you know, she's one of hundreds of millions of kids that age and younger around the world right now that they're just learning how to be social in their little circle. And how do they spend the next, whatever it's going to be, being deprived of that as well? One of the other comments I wanted to make is I spend my winter in Arizona. And of course, last year I wasn't able to go. This year, I decided after much thinking and pondering that I would, and I'm here now. There's a company out of British Columbia that specialized in telephone system. So you buy their service, and that gives you cell phone service across the border. That company crashed because after 2 years, that's all they had. There were no snowbirds, they had no income, and they couldn't survive. So many hundreds of companies that we don't even know anything about unless we are exposed to them, as I was with them.
Right.
And then finally, I just want to say that some of my new things, I think one of the most interesting one is Sanctuary, because I was introduced to the Tuesday night meeting a couple of years ago. A friend in Toronto mentioned a topic that was going to be discussed, and I said, okay, well, maybe I'll join and see what happens. And I've been pretty much online ever since, Kristen, as you know.
Yeah.
But the two things that I had no time for before was reading and formal exercise. And I have integrated both of those things into my world over the last 2 years, and I'm not going back. So,
That's great. That's great.
Good.
Well, best of luck to your granddaughter. Yeah, I have a lot of friends with school age kids, and you know, whether it's kids or grandkids, from high school seniors that missed out on sports events and proms, middle schoolers who are just awkward anyway, right? You know, and friends whose kids didn't get to go to kindergarten or first grade. That's such an important thing. I have to think that, you know, like Ken said, those have also got to be things that are going to carry forward for, you know, another generation, I'm sure. But yeah, no, thanks for sharing. I feel like you've been a permanent part of this group for as long as I've been, Glenda. So we must have stumbled on it around the same time.
I think we did.
Book club. Woo!
Here, yeah, book club is probably, I mean, the most loyal. Cyril's following.
It's the books.
It's the books and the amazingly sexy facilitator.
Right.
The host. Hey, we're coming at the top of the hour, and some last thoughts there. Take it in, honey.
I just wanted to say another thing that was very unique here in the Dominican was flights stopped, and it's an island. There's not flights within city to city. So even though I was young and don't remember the show, but there was a show, it was like a guy that was like, de plane. Like that's how we all felt when flights started again. And they actually had the government fly around with helicopters with the Dominican flag and a sign that was like, we can get through this. and they flew around the island, and people were outside cheering and crying, and it was like the flights started the next day. And like when they started the flights again, they had water that they were spraying at the plane and people cheering outside because it was crazy. Like they stopped flights March 17th till July 1st, and it's an island of tourism. So that was a really unique thing too, that I don't think the US really got to do, because you guys still had flights like in the country. But it was very interesting to see all of that as well.
How exciting. Yeah, right. Those smaller island nations, what a collective experience for the whole, everybody to be like nothing and then it's back. And then talk about having a what's new look like. But Joby, I do have one last slide, and I think Anna gave a great transition right into it. Oops, if I can do this. Sorry. Nope. Sorry, I got too many windows open. There's my last slide. We'll do this. So, I do want to recognize, like we said, there's definitely a lot of loss and a lot of hardships, but I found this image, how silver linings work, the inevitable and the part you make yourself. So I just hope as everybody is setting their 2022 goals or resolutions or intentions or whatever you want to call them, think about what went accidentally well, or what you put in place to help you get through the rough times. So these connections with our friends, with our family, international connections, long distance connections, self-reflection, time to read, time to take classes, time to launch podcasts, time with your pets, all of those things, right? We're not, I don't know. I saw Kelly, when does post-COVID start or post-pandemic start? I don't know. There's a lot we cannot control, but there's a lot we can control. So, take some time, reflect on it, and make your own silver lining. And that's all I got for that.
Kristen, first off, can you all just unmute yourselves and give a round of love to Kristen? Kristen, what a great job tonight.
Great job, Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen.
Great job.
Oh,
Awesome.
Thank you all for sharing.
Your research was great. Your slides were great. Your facilitation was great. And you somehow prompted 3 people to make some of the great closing comments. And I hope you all have your chat boxes open. And I hope you know that in the very bottom of your chat box, when it says to everyone, if you go all the way across, there's 3 little dots, right, Kristen? The triple ellipse. In case you know that. If you left click on that triple ellipse, it'll say save chat. And then you can click that, and it will actually save the whole chat onto a file called Zoom and today's date on your computer. And goodness, Tracy, you were just saying, it's like part of it is the show must go on. Part of it is the show can always be canceled. So you kind of hold things more loosely, right? And have a different, not a lower expectation, but a different level of expectation if something changes. Something is unexpected, which happens all the time, daily. Breaking news. And then Peter, goodness, just talking about a rebirth, and the things that you're going to take forward are the things that you're choosing to take forward. That is what tonight and this series is about, is allowing us to reflect. And I so appreciate tonight, there was laughter and joy with the good things that we've learned. There was also a little bit of vulnerability, right? When people shared as well. And so we always want this conversation space not to be easy, but to be supportive, to be challenging, to be loving, but to tell the truth. And for people, a place for people to really show up. And so all that mixed up with your last slide, Kristen, tonight, next week, February 1st, it's an opportunity for us to reflect on the fact that, yes, COVID has shaped who we are today.
And we'll continue to shape us.
And we'll continue, right? And yet, how do we live into the good parts? How do we let go of the things that weren't serving us, right? That intention at the beginning of the year to make 2020 a year that we choose to bring 2022, to bring the gifts in, let some stuff down, you know, and to make room for all that is good, for all that is ahead, and for the resilience to keep going, right? And to help other folks who may have a harder road with us. And we heard that tonight a little bit, some of us in different situations. A long time ago, a friend said to me, same storm, different boats. Same storm for all of us, different boats. And to be, really helped me to understand, to be loving and compassionate, to accept the blessings that I have, to accept the challenges that I have because of these last 22 months, but also just to honor everyone's ride down this path. So thank you all for coming on tonight. I hope you come next week, and I hope you bring someone else. We'd love to have a great conversation about how COVID has impacted our career choices, and sometimes the things our careers did with us without our choices, and what we're doing to move on, you know. So so thank you, Kristen. You'll be facilitating next week.
I will.
Thank you.
Sure.
Love it.
Thank you so much.
And what a God
Thank
thing
you so
tonight.
much.
We have no internet here, so thank you, Kristen, for holding the whole thing together.
Yeah, no
Good night,
problem. My
Thank you,
pleasure.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Love you,
Night,
Tracy.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
you. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have